Victoria Whitmore sat perfectly still at table 12, her posture so composed it bordered on rigid, as if moving might shatter whatever fragile dignity she had left. The clock on the far wall ticked louder than it should have, each second landing like a verdict. 37 minutes. Her wine glass sat untouched, condensation sliding slowly down the stem. The rich aroma that had once promised comfort had faded into something flat and sour. Across from her, the empty chair felt accusatory. The last text from Marcus Reed glowed in her memory. On my way. That had been 25 minutes ago. Victoria stood, pulling her coat closer around her shoulders, rehearsing calm in her mind. She would leave cash for the wine, offer a polite smile to the waiter, and walk out with her head high, like a woman who hadn't been humiliated in public. Then a quiet voice broke through the fog. "Excuse me, would you like to share the table?" She looked up. The man standing beside her was shielding his daughter's small hand in his own, not possessively, but protectively, like he was guarding the most important thing in the world. The girl peeked out from behind him, eyes wide and curious. Victoria blinked, caught off guard. The day had already been brutal before the restaurant. 6 hours trapped in a glass-wall boardroom. 6 hours of corporate warfare. The executive council had pushed relentlessly for her signature on a development deal that made her stomach churn. The numbers were flawless. The morality was not. They wanted to buy out an aging residential neighborhood at rock-bottom prices. Families who had lived there for generations would be displaced so luxury condominiums could rise in their place. Units that would likely sit empty, bought as investment vehicles rather than homes. It was profitable. It was efficient. It felt inhuman. Victoria had left the meeting hollowed out, desperate to remember what it felt like to be a person rather than a name on glossy financial magazines. That was why she'd agreed to dinner with Marcus Reed. He had been introduced through carefully vetted connections. Someone who understands your world. They'd said, someone who can handle you. The restaurant had been her choice. A quiet, family-owned Italian place tucked into a residential neighborhood. No paparazzi. No executives dropping by to talk mergers. Just birthdays, anniversaries, and normal people eating pasta. Marcus had suggested somewhere flashier. She'd insisted. She should have known then. 10 minutes after she arrived, the first text came. Traffic on the bridge. She nodded, ordered water, studied the menu she already knew by heart. 20 minutes in, accident-causing delays. The waiter approached gently, twice, asking if she'd like to order. Each time she declined with a polite, tight smile, painfully aware of the glances from nearby tables. At 30 minutes, the truth arrived, not as a message, but as a social media story. Someone she vaguely knew had posted a video from a downtown bar. Marcus was unmistakable in the background, laughing, drink in hand, surrounded by people she didn't recognize. Timestamp, 18 minutes ago. The realization settled cold and sharp. This wasn't traffic. This was an accident. This was indifference. Victoria felt the burn of humiliation rise hotter than anger. She could buy the restaurant. She could buy the entire block. But she couldn't buy the one thing she wanted tonight. To not be alone. She reached for her purse. That was when the voice returned. Across the restaurant. Henry Carter was carefully counting bills from his wallet with the precision of someone who had learned the hard way that mistakes were expensive. His daughter Emma sat across from him, 8 years old, watching him with eyes that missed nothing. Henry had received a rejection email that morning. The manufacturing plant job. The one he'd been certain about. The one with health insurance. Stability. A future. We went with another candidate. Someone with a degree. 15 years of experience apparently wasn't enough. That afternoon, Emma had asked softly if they could go out to dinner. Just once. Like her mom used to do, Henry had almost suggested sandwiches at the park. But he couldn't say no to her face. He chose this restaurant because it was near the bus stop, because it felt safe, because the online menu showed prices he could barely manage if he was careful. One entree for Emma, one for him, maybe dessert to split. If she finished her vegetables, Emma wore her best dress, the blue one with flowers she insisted still fit. Her hair was pulled back into a ponytail Henry had learned to do from online tutorials. Not perfect, but neat. Henry ordered the cheapest item on the menu, When the bread arrived, he folded his napkin into a paper crane, making Emma giggle. These moments, these small pockets of joy, were what he lived for. Then Emma looked past him. "Daddy," she whispered, "that lady over there is all by herself. Did someone leave her?" Henry followed her gaze to table 12. The woman sat staring at nothing, phone dark on the table. Even from a distance, Henry recognized the tension in her posture. Loneliness, the kind that comes from being left behind. Henry had felt it 2 years ago when Emma's mother walked out. Emma tugged his sleeve. She looked sad. Henry thought of the neighbors who had brought groceries when he lost his job, the teacher who stayed late to help Emma read, the stranger at the laundromat who'd given him quarters when a machine ate his last dollar. Their table had 2 empty seats. Before he could overthink it, Henry stood. Victoria was reaching for her purse when a shadow fell across the table. She looked up, defensive walls already rising, expecting the waiter. Instead, she saw a man about her age with kind eyes and calloused hands. Behind him stood a little girl peering around his legs. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "I don't mean to intrude, but if you're not waiting for someone, our table has extra room." Victoria's instinct was immediate refusal. Then the girl stepped forward. "You looked lonely," Emma said simply. "You can sit with us." Something in Victoria cracked. "What are you celebrating?" she asked, surprised at herself. "Daddy took me out for dinner just because." Emma beamed. Victoria looked at their modest table, the careful budgeting, the generosity offered anyway. "I'd like that," she said softly. Henry smiled in relief. And for the first time in months, Victoria Whitmore sat at a table that felt real. The waiter hesitated only a second before adjusting the place settings. Clearly confused but professional. An extra fork appeared. A chair was pulled in closer. Emma narrated the entire process with wide-eyed excitement, explaining that she'd never shared a table with a stranger before and that this made the night special. Victoria settled into the slightly wobbly chair, smoothing her coat, feeling more present than she had in months. "I'm Henry," the man said once they were seated. "This is Emma." "Victoria," she replied, stopping herself before adding her last name. Tonight, she was just Victoria. Emma studied her seriously. "What do you do?" Victoria hesitated. The truth always changed things. "I work in an office," she said finally. "A lot of meetings." Henry smiled. "That sounds exhausting." "I fix things," he offered in return. "Maintenance. Electrical, mechanical, whatever breaks." "Daddy can fix anything," Emma announced proudly. "My bike, a toaster, Mrs. Patterson's sink." Victoria laughed genuinely. "That sounds like an important job." The conversation flowed easily. Emma asked questions without filters. Henry listened carefully, always giving his daughter the best part of his meal without comment. Victoria noticed everything. The way he folded napkins into animals, the way Emma leaned into him without thinking. "Do you ever feel," Victoria asked suddenly, emboldened by the wine, "like people decide who you are before you open your mouth?" Henry thought for a moment. "Every day." Emma frowned. "You were waiting for someone," she said. "Did they not come?" Victoria nodded. "He didn't." "That's mean," Emma declared. "You're nice." Victoria's phone buzzed. Marcus. She answered on the 3rd ring. He was at a bar. Loud music. Laughing. "You're not in traffic," she said calmly. "You're drinking." Silence. "Don't call me again," Victoria finished, ending the call. Her hand shook. Emma reached across and patted her hand. "At least you're not alone now." Henry slid a glass of water toward her. No questions. No judgment. They finished dinner talking about small things. Favorite school subjects, repaired jobs, the fact that Victoria had never learned to ride a bike, which Emma found tragic. When the check came, Victoria reached for her purse. "No," Henry said gently but firmly. Tonight was for Emma. Victoria understood. This wasn't about money. It was about dignity. Outside, under yellow streetlights, Emma hugged Victoria fiercely. No numbers were exchanged. No promises made. But something stayed. 2 weeks later, Victoria stood 60 floors above the city, staring at the same development proposal. The neighborhood felt different now. She saw faces instead of figures. During a site inspection, she heard a familiar voice explaining electrical failures with quiet authority. Henry. The realization hit them both at once. "You're the CEO," Henry said. Victoria didn't deny it. Later, when the truth surfaced about ignored safety reports, cut corners, and a fire caused by negligence, Henry became the scapegoat. Victoria refused to let it stand. She ordered an audit. Marcus accused her of emotional compromise. She stood her ground. The investigation exposed everything. Bernie Hale was fired. Henry was reinstated with a promotion, but Victoria paid the price. She lost her position. She packed her office in silence. That night, she returned to the restaurant. Table 12. Alone. "Is this seat taken?" Henry stood there with Emma, holding a paper crane. They sat together again. This time, they split the bill, equal partners. 3 months later, Victoria worked from a modest office overlooking the saved neighborhood. A new company, new values. Henry stopped by on lunch breaks. Emma called Victoria her almost mom. They moved carefully, slowly. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Henry reserved table 12. No Emma tonight. Just 2 people who had found each other honestly. He gave her a bracelet, laminated paper cranes. "A reminder," he said, "that you're not alone." When he asked, "Would you like to share the table? Not just tonight, but always?" Victoria answered without hesitation. "Yes." Under the same streetlights where it all began, they stood hand in hand. Different worlds. Same table. And this time, no one was left waiting.